a note, so retain a 15-foot easement for existing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, and I have a picture on that, so.
You got a map?
Yes, Zane sent it to me.
How are y'all? Doing good. I think. I'm glad he's doing okay. He texted me like 20 minutes till and said he was running late, but he didn't. I said, well, I haven't even left the office yet, so I didn't know what he was. Okay, I have 5 o'clock. Let's call this month's meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
Got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No old business. First item on the new business is a variance to allow addition of a non-conforming structure located at 1404 South Utica Avenue. We have a staff report on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So this is an application to allow an addition to a non-conforming structure that does not meet the area requirements for the district. It's not the addition that does not meet the area requirements. It is the original structure does not meet the front yard setback, but the rear yard setback and side yard setbacks are met on this application. And so when you're reviewing these and considering if it should be approved, there are special conditions that have been found because the setbacks were not accurately measured at the time of construction, but that does not mean that the homeowner should not be allowed to do an addition that does meet the current setbacks for the property. And it is the addition is in conformance with the Russellville zoning code. There's no other non-conforming uses in the area that were considered. The granting of the variance is the minimum, allowing reasonable use of the land. The granting of the variance is in harmony with the purpose, and there are no additional safeguards required, and it is in conformance with the table of permitted use. So it is staff's recommendation that the Board of Adjustment approve this variance request based on the findings that the setbacks were not accurately measured at the time of construction. The home was built before current zoning code went into effect. It is not the intent of the zoning code to prohibit property owners to make additions to their homes when those additions are in conformance with the Russellville zoning code. The proposed additions to the home meet the setback requirements, and the applicant has met all other variance requirements. And that is my staff report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Is Mr. Paz here? Okay. Do you have anything you wish to add to that? Okay. Does anybody from the audience have anything they wish to add? If not, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Gray.
All right, second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 2 is a variance to allow a reduction in front yard setback from 20 to 12 and reduction in side yard setback from 15 to 2 located at 201 East G, submitted by T.J. Curtis on behalf of First Assembly of God Church.
Yes, sir. And I have there it is. So this is a Valley Christian School variance request to the setback. So they are requesting a 8-foot reduction to the front yard setback on East H Street, going from 20 feet down to 12 feet. My addition is not very good. And then they are requesting a variance to the setback along the side street on Cleveland Avenue from 15 feet. And this actually is a revision. It's down to 1 foot from the current property lines for the property. So the existing conditions, this is zoned R3. It is medium, high-density residential. The district, being R3, does permit site-built housing, manufactured housing, and modular housing constructed on individual lots with uniform design guidelines imposed to maintain neighborhood harmony and consistency in appearance. In June of 2017, 2 modular units were placed on the property, intended to be temporarily placed for 2 years. And the use of this is for a parochial school, which in an R3 district is a permitted use. This is an overhead picture of the property in 2019. You can see where those 2 buildings were placed on the property. And so that is what it looked like prior to receiving a call this summer from a neighbor when this 3rd building with that white and red square on it was placed on the property. In the current location, it is 5 feet from the other buildings, which does not conform to distance between buildings, and so it will have to be moved in order to maintain the requirements of 10-foot separation, which is not only a requirement of the manufacturer, but it's a requirement of the Russellville zoning code and the state fire code. And so this is what it currently looks like. If you look around, this is looking north from the corner of H and North Cleveland. You are looking at a residential neighborhood in look and feel, which is the intent of an R3 zone, is to retain that neighborhood look and feel. If you look across North Cleveland, you've got residential housing, and then you can, if you look down the street, you'll see where those buildings are. Looking from a neighboring resident's property, this is looking from his front porch and his driveway. This is what he sees. It does not look and retain a neighborhood feel. This is what they are proposing to do. It is 1 foot from that side yard setback. It is 12 feet from the front yard. Those are reductions to the area requirements. It was understood by staff that there was a state code requiring separation of 4th and 5th graders from high school students, but it's a requirement that kindergarten and 1st graders cannot be on the 2nd floor. There's no separation requirements. So as a result, staff has not found any special conditions exist and therefore recommend to deny the variance. However, we also recognize that as the Board of Adjustments, you are in a very peculiar, difficult position with this, as the unit has already been placed on the property. Even though they did not get a building permit and they did not go through the proper channels, it's currently there. So you have a decision to make. And so if you choose to allow this variance to place this 3rd building, it is staff's recommendation that you would do something to help maintain the aesthetics of the residential neighborhood, which is the intent of an R3 district. We are requesting that they file a vacation of right-of-way. Because those right-of-way widths are actually 80 feet, there is room that they could vacate a portion of the right-of-way, still leaving the street portion intact, which would allow them to have the adequate setbacks from property line to their structures. We are recommending a site obscuring wooden fence to be built along North Cleveland Avenue frontage, and then a 3.5-foot ornamental fence to be built along East H frontage. We are asking landscaping to be added to include 1 tree along East H Street, 2 trees along North Cleveland, with the addition of shrubs to both of the frontages to maintain the aesthetics of a residential zone. And this is placed across property lines, and so an incidental subdivision application to combine those lots so that the structure is not built across property line. And so you have a choice as the Board of Adjustment. Staff does recommend to deny the variance. However, there is an alternate option with those conditions. That's my staff report. Do you have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. So when this was first brought up, this was about needing extra space to separate elementary grades from high school students. Is that correct?
Yes, that is my understanding. And the applicant is here to speak on that, and I do believe that I think there is someone else in the audience to speak on this application as well.
Okay. Mr. Curtis, you the one that's going to speak on this? Yeah. Okay. Please come to the podium.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you, guys. I'm TJ Curtis here on behalf of Russellville First Assembly and Valley Christian. I currently serve on the board for Valley Christian School. I'm a member of Russellville First Assembly, so I'm here to take any questions you may have or whatever you need me to do.
TJ, what's your time frame? I know you can't give me a concrete, day or whatever, year, but what is y'all's goal as far as, vacating that property?
Well, we purchased our own property out on Hobnob Road, and now we've found ourselves amongst a casino debacle going on right across the street from us. So we've kind of been in limbo. We didn't want to start, right beside a casino, what was going to happen in that area. So we kind of put the plans on hold. And last night we went ahead and voted to proceed on building the school in the area that we had purchased. So we're going to proceed with that. We have a set of plans that are they're almost fully completed. Probably going to take 2 more months to complete those. Then obviously we'll have to fundraise, between that period to get started.
So if that variance is granted today, it would probably just be a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
At the most.
Yes,
before-
sir.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I had, Blake.
So on that timeline again, so it would be 2 years, or you said fundraising. I know that can be tough sometimes too, so.
Correct. Yes, sir. It's just, it's kind of unknown. That's we had already planned on really started, to break ground. But as soon as we unveiled our plan for the new school and try to start fundraising, then all of a sudden there's casino talk, and and they were building, there's potentially all around us. So we never did really get involved in it, but we wanted to wait to see what was going to happen. But now we're still 2 or 3 years down the road, and nothing's happened. They haven't purchased land. And it's just, it's killing us. We're busting at the seams, to needing to be moved. And want a new campus, so that's kind of where we're at. When we moved, when we moved the kindergarten in First, that was what the fire marshal said that was a new rule that we'd had them up there, I think, for 10 years. So pretty much the layout of it is K through 6th is upstairs. And all the rest of the grades are in those 2 portables, the 7th and through 12th. And then we also have some classes amongst just sitting here and there inside the building that aren't really in classrooms. So the upstairs it may go to a room that's a 10 by 10 to a room that's a 20 by 20. They're just random sizes all the way down through the hallway. And so when we moved, we just found out also that we were gonna have to move them, midsummer, which was, we didn't have really any time to plan to just pull them out. Because once we put them outside, because that's the only structured bottom floor classroom so once we moved them there, all the high school had to be brought up to upstairs because there's, certain grades intermingle together. It's not just a traditional, 7th grade is in one section moving classes, 8th grade, 9th grade, and so on. So we had to move all those kids upstairs, and when we did that, it caused us to have to push, the other kids downstairs, and the only place that are classrooms again is the downstairs section. So I know the other grades are, right now out there's 4 classrooms, K through 3rd are in those, and so we still have 4th, 5th, and 6th that are upstairs mingling with, 7th graders all the way to, 10, 11, 12th graders using the same bathroom, as those kids. So, plus those kids are changing rooms, the high school kids are changing rooms, and they're just all, we're having to scatter out down the hall because there's not like a section of the hall that we can isolate to one area or the other. So, all down the hallway, there's students walking, through and through while these other 4th, 5th, and 6th are trying to have class, and so it's just a whole lot going on in one floor.
So the fire code changed, or y'all were in violation of the fire code, or?
Since I've been fire marshal for a while, let me go ahead and answer that. The fire code did not change. When they first moved there from, I believe they were around, well, they were started off Russell Road, and then they were off Portland, right? And then off Portland, yeah. And so then they got the opportunity to move to the current location. Before TJ was involved, I was still the fire marshal. Probably getting tired of seeing me. But anyway, so the fellow that I met with that was in charge, the initial discussion at the time was because he was wanting to put kindergarten so the younger ones, kindergarten first on the 2nd floor. That code has been in effect for many, many years. As a matter of fact, it was in effect when they first opened the doors off where Grace Fellowship is. It's called Grace Fellowship off Russell Road. So that code has been there for a long time. So I did have an initial discussion when they first moved to First Assembly regarding those limitations. So it's just kindergarten and first have to be on the ground level. And second can be above the first. And then you got other sprinkler exceptions in there, which I won't bore you with all those details. So this is probably about, they've been successful and they've grown and they've just kind of outgrown things. But I just wanted to clarify, this wasn't a code change. This has been in effect for a number of years.
Yeah, thank you.
TJ, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Would you be willing to put that wooden fence along Cleveland frontage and that ornamental fence along East H and landscape?
Yes, sir, we would.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What about did you recommend there's going to be this building's got to be moved, right, to come into conformance?
Yes, sir. The building has to be moved. There's a 10-foot separation requirement, and they've actually shown that on the plans. And so they are prepared to move that building additionally to make sure that the separation, and that's why it's a 20-foot to a 12-foot, which is an 8-foot reduction on H Street.
The photograph showed it's 5.5 feet as it sits right now.
The
That's where it's at.
photograph, yes, does show that it is 5.5 or 5. It's about 5.5. I can unfortunately touch either building. And so that's how far it is currently, but we've already remedied that. They talked to the fire marshal. The manufacturer also recommends the 10 feet. So they are prepared to move it 10 feet closer to the street. And the variance request, and ultimately, if recommended, the vacation of right-of-way request would make up for that difference so that they are in compliance with that front yard setback.
So they have Richard, they have a certificate of occupancy right now. To get that moved, and for Sarah, to move that, does that require, is there any teeth the city has to these? That if we're going to approve anything, then it would have to happen. Where are the teeth in this?
Currently, we have not issued a building permit. I believe that was just submitted for 2 days ago. So we have a building permit in review to hear ultimately what is decided here tonight, because as it stands, they don't meet the setbacks, and so we can't approve it unless there's a decision made here regarding if it can stay or not. So if it's not approved tonight, then we can't issue a building permit, and they would have to remove the structure.
Do you have anything else to add, TJ?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank y'all
you.
for hearing your.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to address this matter?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're just gonna have to come, they're gonna have to go north with the building. I haven't got there yet.
There was someone here earlier, and I'm not sure where he went.
Okay. Have y'all heard all the information you want to hear? Any other questions? Have any kind of motion?
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve this application, for the variance, with the conditions. I think the school has already, that they agree with, to get it moved back.
And that includes all of the aesthetic
Yes.
recommendations.
Yeah,
as
that's, yeah, with the conditions attached to it.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is appeal of a decision on administrative official concerning interpretation of Article 3.21 city zoning.
Appeal of the decision.
Do you want to go ahead with your?
Yes, sir. So this is new business, item 3, a variance request. This is for the in lieu fee, the difference between a sidewalk and a multi-use trail in lieu fee for the Bearfield mini storage that will be heard tonight as part of the large-scale development before the Planning Commission. And so the existing conditions for this application, it is zoned M2, heavy industrial, in the Arkansas River Industrial District. Currently, there is no multi-use trail within this section of Bernice. Actually, there's no multi-use trail along Bernice at this time. Most of the commercial development has been along the north side of the road because this historically has been the old Russellville landfill, and this location has only recently been released for development. The zoning code was updated April 2020 to exclude a majority of the Arkansas River Industrial District from the requirement for sidewalks, except that the construction of a multi-use trail shall be required in accordance to the Russellville Connected Trail System Plan with any development meeting the requirements of 3.211C. This development meets the requirements of that because it is new construction, currently vacant property. So according to the the Russellville Connected Trail System, the master trail plan is on the east side of Knoxville and the south side of Bernice. As you can see on this map, the mini storage location is there at South Hartford and Bernice Avenue with the trail. It's called the Russell Byway Trail, according to our Russellville Connected Trail System map, that would run along the frontage of this property. In the top right-hand corner, you see a square yellow box that says evaluating. So we are currently evaluating and considering a multi-use trail from Main Street to Ashley Drive on the east side of Knoxville Drive. And then on the lower left-hand side, yes, is the yellow box there. It says discussion. So we're currently in discussion with DNR Railroad to include a pedestrian crossing at that location. And so although I stated earlier there is no multi-use trail in this location at this time, we are in discussion, we are evaluating options that would bring it close to this area, and an in lieu fee would be an acceptable way to offset that for this development. And so our recommendation, as a result of no special conditions existing, it is not the minimum variance allowing reasonable use of the land, is not in harmony with the purpose intent of the recently updated regulations within the Russellville zoning code. Therefore, staff recommends denial of this variance request. That is my staff report. Are there any questions?
David Garza with Barrett and Associates on behalf of Randy Bearfield. All right, no one knew in 1998 that an ordinance that was created because of a commercial development, and that ordinance stated that no new meets and bounds descriptions would be allowed a building permit unless it was platted. So that ordinance came into effect, and no one knew that it would cause so much problems in the Norristown area and other areas as it has been in the last 10 years. So sometimes an ordinance, even though it is developed for a specific reason because something triggers it, doesn't mean that it's a good ordinance when you have to look at the overall picture. We looked at College Hill, the College Hill rezoning, the Prairie Creek zone, the North El Paso zone. There's been numerous Board of Adjustments because of that. I think every project that has gone into that location has had to come to the Board of Adjustments because there is a problem. And the city recognizes that. Sarah and Garver's team are going to be looking at that. The mayor recognizes that. Everybody recognizes that there's a problem. But it's an ordinance. It's an effect. Doesn't mean that it's a good one. Doesn't mean that it's working properly. So at the time that we were working with the sidewalk ordinance, if you recall, it was a little bit volatile with the builders and contractors, and we started working first with the driveways, and then we started working, actually Dan Owens and myself started working with Sarah on the sidewalks. And we had come to what we thought was a really good agreement. We had made some concessions and worked it out together. We didn't get the ordinance the night of the Planning Commission until pretty late, but we didn't seem to have too much of a problem with it. When I was working with Sarah, we were talking about the area over around Americole and that zone that we need to do something different with the sidewalks. And she created an ordinance for, what was that called over there? The other one. Okay, anyhow, it's a different zone. Well, now, then I talked to her about, well, what about South Arkansas Avenue? You know, those areas. So then she said, yeah, that's a good idea. She created that zone, the Arkansas River Industrial Zone, whatever it is there. But the one thing that I didn't know, and that's on me, if it's on me, I didn't know there was a trail that was added to that language, or I would have objected to that. Now that was, remember, that was in February of 2020. The state closed everything down in March of 2020. So Planning Commission, City Council, everything was shut down to virtual. Didn't know it was even in there. But here's what I'm getting at. See, the mini storage developed along Bernice Avenue, as Sarah stated, is in the Arkansas River District Character Zone, and no sidewalks are required in that zone according to the code. However, according to the new zone, according to the ordinance, it does say trails are required. In the reimagined Russellville 2040 plan, this is trail number 7, is how it's identified. And it's described as traveling north and south along the DNR Railroad, then east and west along Lock and Dam Road via Bernice Avenue. If you take that description, this property is not affected. The trail's not there. But if you look at the map in the same booklet, it goes along Highway T. So which one is correct? And so that's there. Then this is probably because, and I would say it's probably because the change was made because if you put the trail along a state highway, then you can get grant funds. And that's what we've been getting. The city's been doing really good. Parks and Rec's got a couple of grant funds. We're doing several trails for them. And then there's grant funds also on the highway system. So you can get matching grant funds, and sometimes it can be 80-20, where the highway department would pay 80% and the city would pay 20%. And how does the city pay that 20%? But out of the 1 cent sales tax that we passed quite some time ago, and then we re-upped it again. You know, as we re-voted on that, we campaigned to make sure that tax was going to continue. So the city pays their portion of the trail through that. At this location, I talked to Terry about it, and as far as I know, the trail is not designed. Now, they've located it, but that doesn't mean it might not change. You know, if they run into some problems in the area, it can happen. I'm not saying it is, but it could happen. So there's a possibility it could change to the other side. Now, if the trail is being paid for by highway funds and the 1 cent sales tax, then why should one developer have to pay for the construction of a trail that no one else is? Everyone else is getting paid by the city and the highway department, but one person, because we're developing it. That doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem fair. And, you know, we discussed this at the opening of the Garver meeting, and one of the comments the mayor had stated that we need to fix some things. We need to fix the sidewalk ordinance because it's not right when you have a developer 1.5 miles up Highway 7 away from a sidewalk and he has to pay for a sidewalk, even though the highway department has already said, you're not putting a sidewalk in. And there's no sidewalk there, but yet we're paying an in lieu fee. And as the mayor stated, in my opinion, that's highway robbery. We've got to fix this. This is exactly the same thing. It may not be a sidewalk, but it's a trail. It's the same thing. It's meant for the same purpose. So if the city is paying for this, the majority of the trail through here, as they do section from section, with grant funds and with the 1 cent sales tax, then it wouldn't be fair to ask one developer to pay a portion of that when no one else is doing that. But not only that, but that developer also has 5 businesses in the city of Russellville. Being said, he's paying that 1 cent sales tax. So he is adding to that. So now it feels like a double jeopardy. Not only is he being asked to pay the in lieu fee, but he's paying for the 1 cent sales tax, which is going to be paying for that trail again, you know, through that 20% if they get a grant. So, you know, Garver has been, planning department has been hired to review and make recommendations for the revisions of the planning documents. This section needs further review, in my opinion, and it should have been set up instead of having to build the trail, since we don't have a design or an exact location of that trail where it's going to be, whether it's going to be on right-of-way or it's going to be on private property. It should have stated, in my opinion, the ordinance should have stated that the people along, or the property owners along the trail system per the map, should retain or leave a corridor on their property should a trail need to go on their property of X amount of feet. That could be done, because in your front setbacks on all the properties is 25 feet. So you wouldn't be building anything in there anyway. So it's easily done, and it's just a reserve strip that would be on the plat as an easement for a trail. And at the same, and then the developer is not having to foot the bill for that when no one else is footing the bill for it. It's being paid for by the 1 cent sales tax and the grants. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and it just feels like we're being robbed in essence. I mean, you know, I understand putting ordinances together, but sometimes we can make mistakes in the wording of what we do put in ordinances, and once we We realize that, and what I'm trying to say is, I think this is the first test of that section. I don't think anyone has paid an in lieu fee, have they, for a trail yet? I think we're the first one. So we're the first one. I think the casino, they kind of agreed to do it, even though they objected at several meetings, but they agreed to do it. But this is the first one, so we're the trial here. So whatever you decide is going to kind of set that precedence down the road. So as a compromise, and we're not trying to be mean or anything. I talked to Randy. If we weren't in any of these zones at all, you know, the Arkansas River Zone or the one over by Miracle, we would be required to put in a 5-foot sidewalk, okay, along that stretch.
What kind of a price are you looking at? I mean, how much is this costing, Randy?
I don't know,
Do you know?
because
I mean,
I have no idea. I don't know what the size of the trail is going to be. I've heard 10-foot, I've heard 12-foot.
I asked the staff, and the cost for a 10-foot trail, the in lieu fee would be $16,717.50. So this is a large-scale development, right?
Right.
So what's the total cost of this development?
It's about $2 million. And he, through his taxes, he had his accountant look at it. He pays, I think, about just shy of $50,000 a year in taxes. So part of that is going into that 1-cent sales tax from his businesses.
Well, yeah, I understand that. We all pay the 1 cent in some way, one way or another. So the long term, though, from your presentation, you're implying this would be the only business that would ever go out there.
No, not ever. But
but that's sort of the seem your logic was that long term you shouldn't have to pay for anything right now, when long term there may be several businesses out there, and that would be what the planners are trying to anticipate. Would that not be correct?
not necessarily, because when you're building a trail, you know, you're building it from one connecting point to another connecting point, okay? And with that, knowing that you're going to have grant funds and knowing you're going to be using another fund to build that trail there, then why would you tax anybody else? I mean, are you going to be asking anyone along the corridor to pay a portion of that then?
Sarah, would that be, if somebody comes
That
along with a
doesn't make
similar
sense.
development, would they not be asked to do the same thing?
Sure, if they were developing, but what about the existing property owners? That's what I'm getting at. The existing property owners that are there are paying nothing.
Well, there's always, when you're existing, you have a different set of circumstances. Board of Adjustment makes all kinds of adjustments based on, you were already here, you have no liability for this, but when it's new construction, that's a little bit different, I would think.
I'm just afraid we're going to set a precedence if we don't allow this in lieu of, and you start developing that land through there, then you're never going to get money for it. And we've got trails that we approved for the Russellville area, like the ones going through the school area right now. It's gorgeous. I mean, and I've gotten so many compliments how nice it's going to be. And this is, to me, I don't like spending the money either, but that is in lieu of, so when it is connected through our trail system, it will be paid for. And the funds that you get from the state matching to the state highway, that's, you know, it's hard to
It's
determine that.
very difficult, you know, when you're a landowner and you're a developer, that you're having to pay for a section of a trail system, you're not sure when it's gonna go in, but you're having to pay for it and no one else, you know, or most of the people else aren't. At the same time, you're paying in the 1 cent sales tax that that this trail's being paid for.
Well, we
So,
all, I mean,
you know, like I said, as a compromise, we were willing to do the in lieu for the 5-foot sidewalk because it's fair.
Right.
Any development that goes through there would have had to put in the 5-foot sidewalk anywhere.
Right.
So that's fair.
So
We feel like that's fair.
so you're saying that you would put the 5-foot
The in lieu for the 5-foot sidewalk, and they
Sidewalk,
can
but
use it
not
for
the
the
trail.
trail. if they want to.
Well, but then if later when the trail comes through, the taxpayers will pay for another 5 feet.
He's paying for it.
Well, I know, but
Yeah,
all of
no,
us,
we all
all of us are.
Yeah.
And also, Sarah, isn't the long-range plan, the highway department is looking to get rid of that section of highway and turn it into a city street eventually. I don't know if that's still on the books as well.
Right.
No, Bernice would always, the plan is to eventually swap Knoxville with, Elmira over there and make a connection. It would still be along Bernice, so this would still be a state highway from what I understand, at least what we know at this point. It could change, but most likely this would still remain a state highway in that section.
All right, well, I got one more comment that I would add, just to think long-term. I work at Russellville High School for the last 30 years, and it's not a great place for kids to walk. And so any kind of long-range plan for a trail system, I think we need to be thinking long-term and how that can connect, because you just come to Russellville High School any day at 3 o'clock and you can watch kids walking down that highway right now on both directions for a long way. So I'm glad we have a long-range plan for a trail system. So I would
Yeah, we
encourage
are.
us to think long-range.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, we like trails, and we don't have any problem with the trail going through that corridor at all. It's most likely, it's going to be on the highway department, because that's the way they do their funding, is they'll set it up where it's on highway right-of-way. And there, it's an 80-foot right-of-way that comes down through there, so there's ample room for that trail. But that's usually the way it's designed, is it fits right up against, within their right-of-way up close to the property line.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Garza. Does anybody from the audience have anything to add to this? Do we have any motions?
I make a motion to deny based on the staff's recommendations.
We got a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Going once? That motion dies.
Guys, okay.
Do
thank
we
you.
have another motion?
Like I said, we don't have a problem participating, do the 5 foot in lieu is fine with us. And that will add to the future of that trail. Or even if they were to take that and use it where the school section is first, I don't know how far down it's gonna come around, but definitely the school could use it, that section there.
That's the key word, that section there.
Yeah, that section there. 'Cause
That's-
they're
it
gonna
doesn't-
do
One size doesn't
point
fit
A,
all.
point
That's-
B, they can't do it all.
Right.
The funding's not there, but they're gonna do that section, and I would say that's the most important section, is that right there. That's where I want my money to go, is right there.
Do we have another motion?
I'll make the same motion to deny based on the staff's recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're going to have something coming up next month that is very similar to this. We're not here to table things, but if we're going to set a standard for something, we would like to hear something extremely similar next month.
We got a motion to deny again, so we need to act on that motion first.
If you want to table,
And
that's fine.
With a lack of a
if we
second.
don't have a lack of a second, do we have a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table this item till the next meeting.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion
Thanks.
carries.
I vote no.
Got a no from Mr. Gray. Nobody has anything else, we're adjourned. 542